So far, the first one. So we don't know anything. Lisa said yes.
Oh, I just noticed like
yeah, so yeah. It's interesting because I like it. It's so much passion. Do what? She always spends $8 to spend. What $1,000 she was building the street or something. 37 cents. Right, 72G. Give me the cat. Keep going. Yeah, so the problem is with all red line, we're not knowing about the project. One of them was in the same area. The rest, so Loretta was I got that place. They look like they play out. You got a royal club or something like that? Yeah, right. He's in the pool. They got the big window. We got a picnic. I think it's a rarity to see. Yes. I don't want it. That's you on the board too. Yeah. Set limits. Yeah. Alright, guys. Get the buffet. It's got a real it's liquid throughout all the reporting machines throughout the whole country. I think $5 a spin is what it takes to I'll tell you what, the best one is come back and I'll show it. Go walk Freddie sees us. He's like, hang on. Literally is thousands. He has done all this real. It actually was like real foot. 2 spins, just right on the box. All at the casino, not a single person in that area. He knew he even brought right to it, and we Shannon and I looked at each other. It's like, I got pissed. We had up there, we could change the ball, go out and eat. There's 3 of us heading back. I guess not. So best case, how? Once a year, they have someone who how would you like to it's all over your house. You can win some pots ahead of bad lead. Is there Texas Hold'em? Where one guy had straight plus.
The loser gets 50 or 70%. That's right. Winner gets 20.
And then everybody sitting there gets 20.
Yeah.
So that's 30,000. Yeah, just beat it. 25,000.
You get the turn.
I should.
You should. I will.
Dave Durham's up there all the time. Yeah. They're big sort of. Dave Durham has a nickname. It's called Double D. He's funny as well. He was telling me about being in the Chattagay, Texas Hold'em tournament. Chattagay, New York, It's a big game. The winner, $675,000. Out of, I don't know how many people can start.
They did the same.
But yeah, the first time you send in a people. Because our finish, I mean, you can't take someone, you know, 112. Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
He won some other tournament, and he was that money to get into this because he was going in with what he knew were high rollers, actually people you see on TV.
Yeah, that's how you do it. You're like a $40 buy-in, the winner that money gets used in their entries.
Like Dave you see on high rollers poker on TV with $1 million in Vegas, he's there. He said that he beat a lot of guys, professionals, and he was like down to 115, and he's playing along, and the guy who actually won the whole thing knocked him out because he ripped him 3 stars. He had to go in. He didn't have play.
You gotta get cards.
That same guy that River had got money there.
Wow. At the end of the day, it's been all about just getting cards.
It's lost.
You gotta watch what's out there.
Like you're playing cash games, skills with that, but there's tournaments. It's probably more or less good.
And they go day and night. They play for an hour and a half or so. They take a break. Just keep going. You gotta do the shake. Or you gotta do a lot of drinking.
It's just 2 guys that are able to play for 3 months straight, just every game. One guy lost like $2-3 million, and this was in the 50s.
Yeah, shoot my cards.
That's such a big game, I think it attracts the guys from Vegas.
Like this older guy over there, they dress up like me. So they can't read anything on their face.
Sweatshirt with
Yeah,
you can't even see the size of their face.
Sunglasses.
Jack the Guard.
Can't see any of their tails.
You do the online text, it takes out the whole.
That's really the way in.
How about that?
What's that? What did they say?
I don't think I could watch the chips.
Oh, yeah.
You do online on their chips?
Yeah, you do that every time, so you can't, do something different. You ever see them shuffle chips or something? Yeah, they do that. They do that.
Maybe that's what
To
drive the other people.
Can't get a read on it. I can play that tournament. That's exactly.
Right now? Right now.
You should put
You guys can talk about what you need to over here.
That would be all right. You know, I'll come table.
8 guys in the table. Guys. Start off small. 25. I think a good Friday. And then you can buy the
Good Friday.
Perfect. Yeah, that just figured it out.
Right, Beth? Good Friday's a perfect day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. You guys missed one of the payrolls, so there was two sets. And Peter, you missed all.
I looked for this and I couldn't,
But you also missed the other two sections.
because they were all
Yeah.
combined with, under
Yeah.
one.
But then you have another set to sign too.
We're returning from executive session. We discussed a potential litigation against Purdue Pharmaceutical, pending litigation regarding the firefighters arbitration award, and potential litigation with Plattsburgh Central School District. Notices are made during executive our council meeting. Let's begin our meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Armstrong? Here. Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Dowdle? Counselor Ensel?
Here.
Counselor McFarland?
Here.
Counselor Kretzer?
Here.
Don't believe I have any comments at this time.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on November 29th, 2018 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Kretzer and second by Councilor Ensel. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending December 12th, 2018 in the amount of $117,824.54 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
By Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Ensel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. You have your regular reports in your electronic packet. Let's begin Council and Department Chair with committee reports with governance strategy and city operations. Councilor Kretzer.
Let's see, we had our meeting last week, and I don't have any updates since then.
Yeah, and I had kind of tried to coordinate a meeting regarding a discussion about cryptocurrency and whether or not and when we would lift the moratorium. I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I believe that Councilors Ensel and McFarland might have a summary, but maybe not.
Yeah, we did meet on Monday and we had a very good discussion, and Councilor Ensel brought some of his concerns to my attention. We'll be happy to update the council on that, yeah. Right now, if you want.
I don't know if you want to do
Sure.
that.
So basically, Councilor Ensel, the concern here is the noise and the noise ordinance. Our corporate council did provide us with the city's current noise ordinances. The mayor has also circulated a proposed noise ordinance. So I do think if we can get some movement on the noise ordinance. I know Councilor Ensel had some concerns, and he's been doing some research on decibel levels and what exactly that means. I also have heard some concerns about our current noise ordinances. So I do think a collaboration and to sort of clean up our noise ordinances and perhaps increase the noise ordinance is along the line of what the mayor proposed would be appropriate. And I brought my concern that unless we have legislation out there, the moratorium really shouldn't stay any longer than absolutely necessary. So I do think that Councilor Ensel and I have discussed pursuing the noise ordinance.
Okay.
We don't have something today, just time was a constraint.
Right.
But we do want
Hope
to
to
work.
have something maybe next week.
Hopefully
Next
next week we can get movement on the noise ordinance, and then hopefully the moratorium should be lifted as soon thereafter as possible.
All right, good, thank you. I don't believe I provided an update last week about the Sustainability Committee, which had met the previous Monday, but did I? But anyway, there's interest in working on a voluntary program for downtown vendors to only offer straws and other kinds of plastic products upon request, and we're just entertaining how that might work and be organized and how to kind of sell it to downtown vendors. I met with Tobacco Free New York, the director Dana Isabella and Danielle O'Mara, who is, they are working with me to help draft a change to our tobacco ordinance, prohibiting the use in public spaces. I've got some language that I'm working on. I forwarded it to our corporate counsel, and hopefully within the next week we can put that up as an item for initial consideration. The change would require a hearing, I do believe, so I'll have advice regarding how to go about that. And I just have a request now that I have the mic here. I know that, and I'm glad we're having 2 presentations about the DRI on December 17th and 18th. I won't be out of town, so I won't be able to attend, but I was wondering if there was any way that presentation could be filmed and made available online to residents who cannot attend.
We can look into it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Speaking of your sustainability committee, I recently bought my first electric car. I think it's probably the last vehicle I bought was probably end up being my last gasoline car or diesel car in this case, because electric technology is really improving. So I ask everybody to consider doing it. I think that the city of Plattsburgh may become one of the first municipalities anywhere to become totally carbon neutral, since almost all of us heat primarily with electricity. And electric cars are becoming much more prevalent, or will be in the future. And we'll probably end up using very little fossil fuels. And then all the greenery and the trees around us actually are carbon sink avoiding, or absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. We're working with a professor at the university right now to look at the city's carbon footprint, and I think we'll have the really neat distinction within the next decade or so of being a completely self-sustaining city.
That's Dr. Eastwood, who is serving on the Sustainability Committee. Yes.
Thank you for that good work. When you get to the point of doing a noise ordinance, I think that would require a public.
It would be a local law change, so yeah, I'm sure there are local public hearings.
Yeah, so please keep that in mind as your timetable. City infrastructure, Councilor Ansel.
Yes, we met prior to our work session. We heard from John Ruff about some exciting projects that are coming down at the water resource facility, mitigation. We also heard from the 2 Mikes and DPW in that, although with reaction to, or response I should say, to some concerns that had been expressed, that there has been some work done on the manhole covers on Cornelia Street. They're not entirely our property or our work, but it has been addressed, at least patched, and hopefully down the road we'll have a permanent solution to the. We also had a number of items that we moved forward onto the agenda tonight, but also, and we'll be voting on it in just a few minutes. We're recommending 2 gentlemen for the parking advisory board.
Thank you. Finance and budget, Councilor Kelly.
Our monthly meeting will be held next Thursday, and just to prepare you for that, I was very pleased to see last week that the council approved a contract with the firefighters to settle a long-term contract there, something that we badly needed to do, and it's very much in keeping with the council's philosophy of trying to make long-term liabilities go away. And that was certainly a large long-term liability, So while that is good news, then the challenge becomes for the council to figure out, how do we pay for this? How do we, take this responsibility and deal with it financially? So that's something we're going to have to struggle with. We'll talk more about it in next week's finance and budget meeting. So we are in the process of updating the 5 to 10 year plan to see how those payments will affect that. And fortunately, the council has done a very good job of managing our budget this year, so that we actually have a small amount of money left over to deal with situations like this. So it certainly helps. Had we not planned, we would find ourselves in a much worse condition. So we'll talk more about that next week. I'll ask the mayor if he'll let me speak with Richard Marks about it, so that I fully understand what's going on, and we'll be prepared to share that with you next week.
Please do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Public Safety, Councilor Dowdle? Oops. Who's the second on that committee?
I think it's Peter.
It's Mike.
It's Mike.
You're
Mike, you
number
get
2
another
on
bite of the
Public
apple?
safety.
Public safety? Well, public safety will meet the week after we do, and after next week. And I'm sure at that time we'll discuss all of the issues to do with those departments.
Thank you. Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor Armstrong.
No updates.
And MLD Board President, Councilor McFarland.
No updates at this time.
Resolved, the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Ensel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Council's recommendations at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the Common Council for the week ending December 14th, 2018, in the amount of $3,150,150.83 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. This is an opportunity for any individuals in the audience to please come address the council on items on the agenda tonight. You can receive an agenda outside. There will be another public comment period at the end of the meeting, so if you have an agenda item you'd like to discuss, please come forward. Seeing none, let's continue, please.
Resolved in accordance with the request
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading and move resolutions 7A through J, as well as 8A, as they've all come approved from committee previously to this meeting.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Crystal, second by Councilor Ensel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Discussion on the items themselves.
Just briefly, as was discussed in the Infrastructure Committee in regard to item 7A, as Mr. Brody explained, there hasn't been an increase in a number of years, about 5 or 6 years, I believe, Mike. And over that period of time, the tipping fees have increased significantly, or at least a couple of dollars per ton over that period of time. And this increase essentially represents taking care of covering those increases in the tipping fees. And it also does keep us competitive with other hauling services in the area.
And I know there's two proposals or two nominations for the Parking Advisory Board. Just so I'm up to date, Matt, do we know if those are approved, how many members will be on that board so far?
Only 6.
And they start meeting once there's 7 or more, is that correct?
Once 7 are confirmed, the first meeting has to take place within 2 weeks for the authorizing resolution.
Your permission to be able to treat I and J separately since they are appointments?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think that we deserve to withdraw K since it was defeated last week and it's being
I didn't include
You didn't.
K.
Oh, you didn't include K?
Nope.
Okay.
Let's revote then on consideration of all the items except for I and J. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion on the items before we vote? Items themselves. Seeing none, roll call.
It was also 8A.
Hmm?
Did you say that it was 7A through 7H, and then 8A?
And 8A, that's right.
Oh,
Roll call? Yep.
sorry. Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
And going back to the two appointments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
By Counselor Armstrong, second by Counselor McFarland. Any further discussion?
I think both gentlemen have expressed a great willingness and eagerness to serve.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have them both on the board.
Okay, roll call.
Did you do both of them?
Were you moving both of them, I presume?
Yes.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the City Chamberlain to create the capital project resolution for the Glens Falls National Bank parking lot H5110.65 in the amount of $500,000 funded through the parking lot fund or fund number 3.
Moved by Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Armstrong. Discussion.
As you know, I voted against this resolution last week. And I'm just fearful that, and after all the explanation, that it's been past practice and so on, I just have a couple of concerns. I know that we're talking about possibly getting some grant funding for it. I personally would like to at least see the funding available before we vote on it. And I guess I'm just fearful of if this is been past practice, are we creating a situation that got us into the fiscal position that we're in now by doing these practices?
But we agreed to purchase this property. And so I'm going to take the Chamberlain's professional opinion about how to arrange financing, which we do on a regular basis throughout the year without, kind of excessive scrutiny. He gave us an explanation of how funds move around, and to me, it just doesn't compute, Peter. Your objection doesn't compute to me.
I agree.
That's fine.
I mean, I think Peter's objections make sense, and there was questions, but I agree with Rochelle. The council did vote to purchase the property. I would imagine if we didn't approve a funding vehicle to comply with, there was a contract signed, is that correct?
Yeah, the closing is scheduled for next week, but this potentially creates a hiccup, so we're waiting to get this through before we can finalize the scheduling for the closing.
But the council agreed to purchase it, and if we don't agree for a vehicle to pay for it, we'd be in default of that
Not
contract.
necessarily, I believe we've already committed ourselves to the purchase, so the default would be the vehicle for the purchase would likely be the fall back to the general fund.
But I mean, our decision to purchase this property also fits within the framework of a greater plan to create a new parking district so that we can develop the Durkee Street parking lot. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and to interrupt this, I think, is a big, huge mistake.
Dean, did you just say if we don't approve this funding vehicle, then they would default to being paid out of the general fund?
Because there's nowhere else, no other source listed, we've already committed ourselves to the purchase and to authorize the mayor to sign the conveyance documents. So that that ship has sailed. So now it's just a matter of what funding source, and this is a finance maneuver to allocate it to a capital project, which we would have to do anyway because it's a permanent piece of infrastructure or property for the benefit of the city. So it's frankly certainly needs to be in some kind of capital project so that we can properly depreciate it, account for it, bond it if we need to, and account for it.
Mr. Kelly?
As Peter did, I had reservations about this also. So I consulted with Mr. Marks, and after his explanation, I fully understood why we should do it and why we should use the particular fund that he suggested that we use. And if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Marks, would you explain this to the entire council, what you told, or Rochelle was there also, would you mind explaining to the entire council
He did it last
what you told us this afternoon?
Yeah, basically, you know, it's part of the parking district properties in downtown Plattsburgh. And the parking fund is the fund that takes care of all the parking lots. And this is going to be an asset that would be in the city's asset structure underneath the parking district parking fund. And so raising the funds through the parking fund to pay for it is a logical extension of this capital project. Now, advancing funds is something we always do for a fund that doesn't have the total amount of cash for an asset purchase. When we go out to bond or, you know, initially raise funds through a bond anticipation of, and then eventually put a serial bond in place to pay for a large issue of bonds that we can issue to the public at a rate that they'll pay, an amount that they'll pay for. Because usually you can't just sell a bond for $500,000. You have to have about, say, $10 million to get the public interested in it. So we'll do that once we accumulate everything that we need to borrow funds for. And this will be just part of that bond, and the debt service will come out of the parking fund. Should be about $25,000 principal for a 20-year period. Interest roughly $4,000 a year. So you're looking at $29,000 a year for 20 years out of the parking fund, which has special assessment district revenue right now that amounts to $85,000 a year, and the exploration of additional parking revenues is part of this whole plan going forward.
But aren't we also considering eliminating the special assessment for parking?
It was
That's
recommended.
been discussed, but certainly that revenue would be replaced by something else.
And you touched on it, but I just want to make sure that I understand. Any revenue that would be created or generated from the creation of a new parking system would go into this parking fund.
Exactly.
So paid parking in the city of Plattsburgh, all of that money would go into this fund.
That's correct, to pay for the fund's expenses as well as the debt service.
Thank you.
Do you foresee any problems if this is voted down and the money comes out of the general fund?
It has to be advanced from somewhere, and eventually would become part of a bond anticipation note. So to me, it doesn't matter which fund, but it's appropriate to have it go through the parking fund.
This is your recommendation.
Yeah, because it's going to be a parking fund asset, just like the other parking ones are.
Was the repaving of the Durkee Street lot a few years back used the same methodology,
Parking fund.
and that worked out okay?
Yeah, actually, we had bond anticipation note principal payments through the parking fund, and when we went out to bond, it was going to be about $120,000 worth of debt service. So we said, let's not bond that, let's take $120,000 of the surplus that was in the parking fund, and we paid it off, which left at about $120,000 because the surplus was up to $240,000. So instead of going with a long-term note, we just paid off what was the balance of the Durkee Street parking lot work.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Any further discussion? I'll be delegating this manager authority to either legal counsel or Chamberlain Marks on this because of my listed association with Aero Financial Corporation. So I'll state as well. Ready to vote? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
No.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
That's great. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Or any new business or council reports? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for the public to please come forward and address the council in any issue of mutual concern. please be mindful of a 5-minute time limit. State your name and address.
Yeah, I just have one item that I wanted to bring it up during the infrastructure meeting, but I didn't get a chance. There was somebody here a few weeks ago that came in with his fence getting backed into all the time, and I had a chance to go look at it and talk to him. And there's actually no way that anybody can turn around on that street, Saranac Street, or excuse me, across from Saranac Street, it's South Street. Anyway, maybe we should look into putting like no U-turn sign there or something, because when there's cars in the driveway, it's a very, very narrow street and there's absolutely no way to turn a larger vehicle around in there. And it's inevitable that this guy is gonna get his fence continually hit, because the only way in is if you drive in, you gotta back out. Or back in and drive back out. I think that's what the snowplow does, that said. So anyway, I'd appreciate if we could look at that and see if we can't help this guy out. He showed me his fence and looks like the Mississippi River, so anyway. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Please come forward.
I just want to address something that came up at last week's meeting. I wasn't here, but I watched it. And it had to do with the proposed annexation property. There seemed to be, I guess, an issue about whether or not the town was refusing to cooperate. And I was reading the section 706. I don't know if anybody else has read any of this stuff. I'm just going to read it briefly. It says, if a city is the owner of uninhabited territory adjoining the city, such territory may be annexed to the city if the town board of the town in which such territory is situated, by a concurring vote of the majority of its members, consents thereto on the basis of its determination that such annexation is in the overall public interest. The town board shall, prior to granting its consent, give 30 days written notice of the meeting of the town board at which the question of such annexation will be discussed, to any school district, fire district, or other district corporation, public benefit corporation, and town improvement district operated by a separate board of commissioners, situated wholly or partly in the territory to be annexed and which would be affected by such annexation. Any such district or corporation may appear at such meeting or adjournment thereof and present objections to such annexation. Upon the filing of such consent or consents, as the case may be, with the governing board of the city, the governing board of such city may make a written order determining to annex such territory without the presentation of a petition as prescribed in section 704 of this article and without the holding of the hearing provided in section 705 of this article. I'm kind of at a loss for why the town seems arbitrarily refusing to use this in this case. And seeing how you guys are representatives of the city and should be sticking up for the city, and you know that a long drawn-out process is going to cost us more money, I think my suggestion is that you question why, from the very beginning, I don't know if it's just the supervisor or if it's the town board as a whole, is refusing to look at this at all. It was in the paper today, and he said, we've said right from the get-go, we're not going to go that route. So I'd like you to take a look at that.
Okay.
It's got to be defending the city. They have their people, you're our people. We need to find out why. It seems unreasonable to me, so I'd like to know why they won't do it or consider it.
Thank you.
I'll just very briefly update you in that we were very hopeful of having a very collaborative approach, not only because this is certainly in the best interest of the city taxpayers, as we all know and I think we all understand, but based on our analysis, it's actually also in the best interest of the town taxpayers. Yes, they would lose a little bit of tax revenue coming from the city to the town for the city-owned property in the town, but they would gain tremendously in the economic activity that we could put in there by extending our very favorable electricity rate to that area as well. So I'm very hopeful that at some point we can realize this is very much a win-win situation for all concerned, and thank you for your comments. Any other individuals like to please come and address the council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Counselor McFarland, second by Counselor Kelly. Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, Miss Channel. You look like your mother.
How's it going? Sure.
Here you go.
Thank you very much for coming.
You're all set. Thank you. Anyone else need a signature? Do you need a signature? Do you need a signature?
Thank you, sir. All right.
Where are we?